So we could watch a Theun video. He made one called Power Creep in World of Warcraft Has Gone Too Far. Wait, was it? Oh, he retired from raiding in that video without telling his guild it goes hard? Wait, what? Theun retired from raiding in this video and like didn't tell his guild? He just like expected his guild to watch it? That's so arrogant, bro. Imagine how arrogant that is. Just be like, everybody watches my content. There's no reason for me to tell them. They'll see it when they watch my content that they always do. That's crazy. It's 23 minutes long. Oh, we're doing the Star Wars intro. Wait, I'm actually going to skip this because my YouTube stream will get demonetized 100%. I'm positive. Okay, let's move my camera, I guess, so you can see him. Even though I'm the star of the show here, just so you all remember that. All right, I'm playing it.
But it's not about healing this time, I promise. So.
Oh, all right. First off, thank God. Right? Can we all just get amen to that? Amen to that. All right, let's continue with the video.
Today I want to talk about power creep because it is, in my opinion, the biggest problem that WoW has right now, and I don't think it's close.
Okay.
Now I realize that
power creep's such a broad term
on Twitter and stuff all day. I bitch about pretty much everything. I understand that. That is not what I'm trying to do in this video.
I feel like you're gonna bitch a little bit.
Is to kind of explain like what power creep is exactly, so the people that don't really understand it or don't know how.
Yeah, that's a good move. I mean, like if someone were to say like, Max, address the power creep in WoW, I'd be like, whoa. I'd have to like think about how to construct that argument because it like clearly exists, but finding exact examples where like within one expansion a new ability came out and it was just way better and that it wasn't this like the average button has just gotten more powerful since 2005, I guess, or maybe there's just more of them, or there's power creep and like here's someone who got power crept. Do you guys remember Disc Priest? This is about healing, but like, do you know, like, Disc Priest used to be the ramp healer. Like, they didn't do a lot of overall HPS at times, but they were the healer that could heal through one big damage event, and it was really hard because you had to plan for it. And like, but you brought one because barrier was really good, and because it just kind of helped to have a healer do that, even when they weren't like #1 HPS, right? But then now, if you're a Disc Priest, you probably feel like shit because you're like, there's like 3 other healers that have crazy strong ramps now. So you don't have your thing anymore, you know? Like, other people can just do your thing while also doing other things. You got power crept as a class identity, kind of. That's a way to look at it. Another way to look at it is that like your literal damage goes up over a lot during a season and then season to season, but that's not really power creeping because everyone's at the same place. So like, it's more like designed.
Affects them. I want to explain like why the game feels the way it does right now.
Wait, what did you just ask me? Yo, Unk, when you gonna stop gaming and get some hoes? And then in parentheses, real question though, when are you done with the race, do you think? That's how you phrased, when are you done with the race, do you think? I don't know, man. Probably, I mean, I don't know exactly when the race is coming out, but it's got to be over by like April or something, right? Historically. Like, it's probably coming out somewhere near the beginning of March or even middle of March, and it usually doesn't take 2 weeks. So that is when we will be getting some hoes. All right, back to the video.
And kind of also, like, maybe explain why I've seen so many of my friends, like, leaving or quitting the game or taking a break recently. Now, I understand that it's not abnormal for people to leave the game after the first and second and third patch of an expansion. A lot of people come back at the start of an expansion and then kind of phase out over time. But for me, it was a little abnormal to see the people that were leaving leave. So these are people that have been around since Cataclysm.
All right.
Mop, Warlords of Draenor.
I need to take a picture of him real quick. Did he just get done LARPing in some kind of battle? Or did he get absolutely taken the fuck out like crazy black eye? Or is that the shadow of his mic? It looks like someone beat the shit out of him, right? Maybe it is the microphone shadow. 1 second.
And they've been raiding.
Yeah, you can see it move
since then. Their job allows
That's crazy
them to
though.
raid at those hours. It's not like a schedule conflict or anything. And I've been asking them, like, you know, what was your reason? Like, just curious. What was the
Could have been some war paint.
And a lot of them stated like the game doesn't feel the same anymore, or it almost feels too hard in some aspects, even though they didn't quite say that like word for word, but
I mean,
what
the
they
game
were
literally
describing,
has gotten
is the
harder.
game is-
Like especially here's the biggest problem with WoW is like they're constantly trying to satisfy their current player base while also with whatever they can have left try to be able to have people come back to play WoW that have played it before. New players in WoW, it's an almost dead experience. If you make it into WoW like on your own and you get through the new player experience and you end up loving WoW, I think that's an anomaly. I think the new player experience in this game is impossibly difficult. It is like so hard to understand what's happening and to get like kind of grabbed into the game. But like even a returning player, like because the game constantly is evolving a little bit and getting a little bit more difficult over time. We went over this in raids. Like it's like almost linear. I never looked at like 2 raids back to back and was like the game is just significantly harder. Like every time that's happened, right, historically with like Tuma Sargeras, it always comes back down. It never continues at that trend, right? But so we talked about how people who are new to the game kind of get left behind or are not really included. But people who come back to the game often feel very overwhelmed because the game does naturally harder over time. If you come back 2 years later, 4 years later, the game will be harder than when you left to do the same things you did before. Not necessarily to play your class, just in PvE, the stuff you're playing your class on, I guess, if you look at it like that. Like, that's just true. But I don't know if that's necessarily a bad thing. Like, for example, if you were going to make the most extreme version of the argument is, like, since Mist of Pandaria, like, raids never linearly got harder. They were just always as hard as then. I think people would feel, like, not challenged, especially when Mythic Plus came out. Like, people would just feel like it's too easy. But there's also some people now that are like, man, I could have raids feel a little easy and I'd feel great because you just got off of 2 of the hardest raids ever, in which, historically, you would be expecting Blizzard to come back down. Again, in WoW's history, there has never been like a raid or 2 really hard raids back to back and then it like continued on that trajectory. There was always a rebound. It's happened like 2 or 3 times. But yeah, I mean, I know why you guys would think that, but I think like if they just never, if the raids never got harder, like you can make the most extreme argument from Classic. You'd be sitting here in 2024 and be like, raids don't have a lot to offer, right? It's very basic. There's a reason the game gets a little bit harder. But like if you ever stop playing for a few years, it's going to be a little hard to come back because you can get left behind. Or if you continue playing but you don't play a lot,
just
it could like outscale
it almost
you.
feels too challenging, and they're like, maybe I'm too old or whatever. But I don't think that's why. I don't think these players have magically gotten worse in like 1 or 2 expansions.
Well, you can get worse. No one gets worse. Like even players in top, like when you kind of lose your passion and then you get passed up by other people, you're not actually getting worse. It's just that you're not getting better. Like you're getting worse relative to the people in your guild and relative to all the other players who have not lost their passion or have not quit. But like that is a way of getting, like if all you're doing is comparing yourself to the people around you, you are getting worse. But you're not literally becoming a worse player. You're just not improving like they are, and you're staying stagnant, which will make you feel like you're relatively getting worse from their position. You just stop getting better when everyone else is continuing to get better.
In my opinion, power creep has kind of created this problem. What do I mean when I say?
Yeah, what do you mean power creep? This is so
that's
hard to
effectively
explain.
Taking an ability and making it better, right? That's strapping
Okay,
on
so
some
go-
talent. Oh, hey, Elsmere, what's up? And
What? Oh, he was in game. Yeah, there's a couple ways to talk about power creep, but it seems like he's literally going to talk about abilities getting better over time.
that's like the basic vanilla version of what power creep is. But it's not just how a class plays. Or I've been talking about this problem for a while, and like just like it's hard for a professor to explain like advanced calculus to someone that is just trying to take it for credit in college, it is difficult for me to like emphasize and explain just how power creep.
Yeah, I'm interested to see if this is actually a good video because this sounds incredibly hard to explain. Very hard.
Affects a player. So like why you should care about it. And I still struggle with that. But someone linked me this add-on today. It is called Herrick's Advanced Tooltips. And I'll link everything that I talk about in this video down below if you want to look at this yourself. And so Herrick made this add-on with the intent of trying to give the player more information so that they could actually learn how to play a class. If you've been around WoW for a while, you know that the tooltips in-game are like notoriously bad.
Yeah.
They give you like 2 to 3 sentences at most, and most of the time they're leaving out like so many other interactions and stuff. And while that's not, super important to learn.
Wait, one thing, someone in chat said, people actually do get worse over time. I mean, if you kept playing the game and you used to play with a lot of intensity, and then you started playing really casually, and you like barely like I've not played for like 6 months before, and then I came back and I felt weird for like a couple days, but then it's like riding a bike. You're just instantly back to where you were, right? And then you play a few more weeks and you'll like kind of get that muscle memory back. So if you're just like not playing a lot, it'll kind of go away. I'm just saying a lot of people think like, oh, you get older, so you get worse. Or like even in esports, like a lot of Counter-Strike and like League players haven't played into their 30s or past their 30s. They usually quit around there or they get replaced, and it's kind of ominous. Like what happens? Are they getting replaced with younger players with less experience who have more like reaction time or something? And that matters? Or is it like, in my opinion, and I've actually met and talked with all these players, you just, once you lose that passion, once you've been playing pro League or Counter-Strike for 10 years, it turns out not a lot of people want to do that forever. Sometimes people do, but not a lot of people do. You start wanting to do other things in life. You know what people who got like started being pros in Counter-Strike and League did at 15? They probably didn't like talk to a lot of girls or like be in relationships or have a lot of friends or go out and do things. And sometimes people like get to different parts of their life and they want to start doing those things. And as soon as you lose that, like it being your main passion thing as a pro, you're fucking cooked. That's why people in their 30s usually stop. Like I don't know how many games would find a credible like reaction time difference between a 15-year-old and a 30-year-old with 15 years more experience, and it's like that's not enough for them to play at this level. I'm sure there's some games where that's relevant. I'm thinking like StarCraft, but even League, I've like talked to a lot of people that I've a bunch of friends in the League scene here. Like I think that's like that's like a common fan theory. Like, oh, like players get too old, they can't play anymore. It is almost always because it stops becoming their main passion, and that's when you can no longer play because everyone's improving always. Someone like, for example, in League, someone who was the best as you could possibly be in League in 2018 would probably, if they were to just get transported in time into 2025, they would get smoked. Now, obviously, they were in a time machine for 7 years, or 8 years, whatever, but everyone else that 8 years was getting better. So if you stop getting better, other people will pass you. They would get smoked by themselves, yeah, for sure. Anyways, back to the thing.
Like whenever you're just picking something up, if you want to actually invest into something, or push Mythic Plus, or try to Mythic Raid and stuff. Like, these are things that are important to learn. So, I saw a couple of funny screenshots with this, and thought, okay, this is exactly what I was trying to depict whenever I'm saying, like, you know, Chain Heal is overpowered, and there's way too many things affecting it. Sounding like a, you know, broken record. So, I'm going to use a visual. So, I'm hovering over Chi Burst right now. It's 2 to 3 sentences, very basic WoW tooltip. Tells you it does damage and healing, right? It's very boring.
Yep.
I'm going to hover over Renewing Mist. Mistweaver players are going to laugh at this because they know how important and how like pivotal Renewing Mist is to the spec. But for players that maybe are unaware, my tooltip now goes from the top of my 27-inch monitor off the bottom of my screen. And
Wait, what? I've never seen this before. That's insane.
We're talking to Herrick. Hopefully I'm pronouncing that correctly.
Sorry, is this with the add-on Herrick's tooltips or whatever? Like, default, this doesn't do that. But, I mean, this is good, though. Like, this is kind of showing an example of, like, how much of a gap there is between, like, a new player. The add-on would probably overwhelm anyone logging on to Mistweaver for the first time, and not having the add-on would make them not understand Renewing Mist, but there's probably a lot of buttons and classes and specs in between where, like, giving you the interactions that this thing has will help you understand your class more. But I don't think that's the point he's going to make. The point he's going to make is, holy shit, this is not, like, how can someone understand all this? Probably.
It actually doesn't even have all the information on it. He had to leave out a couple of things because it was going off the end of the screen. So, and it's not just Renewing Mist, right? Vivify is half of my screen. Enveloping Mist is my entire screen. And this is what I kind of mean when I say power creep. At least when it comes to like a class, is these things have so many different modifiers attached to them that they're not allowed to be good on their own. Volk had this thing. He's the evoker and Resto Druid guide writer. He also writes quite a few other things for WoW. He writes Questfully Epic. He does a lot for the game. But he had this good article that I'll link to that is talking about 20 effects for different spells. So and I'll let you read this on your own if you want.
I won't be doing that.
But down here he says,
I get the point.
Spells often can't be strong versions of themselves because they have so many different hooks that they would become overpowered.
True.
Right? So effectively what he means...
It also makes tuning knobs really complicated.
In this like Renewing
Like
Mist,
if you were to ever buff Renewing Mist by like 5%, it's so hard to calculate the exact value of that.
this example, right, is Renewing Mist on its own has to heal for fucking nothing because it has all these things on top of it, right? So if you go,
True.
if I like go damage myself and I put renewing mist on myself, and
Bro,
that's it,
don't hurt yourself.
it's going to take a long ass time
Bro.
for it to heal. And in fact, it's not only renewing mist healing me; it's a bunch of other things as well, which is hilarious. But the point is, renewing mist and all these spells, they are not allowed to be good like they used to be.
Yeah, which could make the game feel less basic. Like I remember watching JB do Legion Mythic Plus as a healer, and like pretty much all of your healing was just rejuves on your group, wild growths, and like the weaving of like life blooms, and just like you basically like a couple of buttons was your throughput, and you just managed your group with that, and it was easy to see as like someone who didn't play Resto Druid, and I imagine as a Resto Druid player is like your decision making was simplified. And I think over time you just add so many, those spells can't do that anymore because of all the combos and interactions that exist now between them, which is harder to learn, harder to execute, and it is possible they went too far in
Healing
that area.
Rain is another.
Also, he said he wasn't going to talk about healers. He's talking about, I'm hearing about health bars
Really
going
good
up right now, and I don't like that
where-
one fucking bit.
You actually don't press healing.
don't like
Rain
that at all.
currently as a Farseer Resto Shaman. Sorry, I know not many people are familiar with this. Healing Rain is like a core spell, right? It is cool. It puts a giant blue circle on the ground, and you don't press it right now because Healing Rain sucks. But the reason it's good in Totemic is because it gets massively buffed because it's Surging Totem or whatever, yada yada. The point is that base spells do anything, and I think a Holy Paladin breakdown paints that picture perfectly. So let's imagine you're in a Mythic Plus dungeon, your mage friend takes Shadow Bolt Volley, they dip down to 30%, and you don't have cooldowns available, right? You just use them on the previous pack, so you just have to like natty heal them, right? You have like Flash
Excellent
of Light,
use
Holy
of
Light,
natty.
Holy Shock or whatever. So I'm not super familiar with current Paladin, but that's the idea, right? So they're at 30% health, you need to heal them up before the next damage event, and you press Holy Shock, and it does 450k healing. We have 6.5 million HP or something right now. So if you're a healer and you're like, hey, my spells don't feel like it do anything, why are you telling us healers need nerf? Well, the problem is power creep has made Holy Shock be so much worse. Just like what Volk said.
Yeah, like I wonder when the last time it happened where you pressed Holy Shock, you pressed Rejuve, you pressed Renewing Mist, you pressed like the one button you press a lot to, and it actually meaningfully moved someone's health bar. Like when I vividly remember that in like Legion. I just remember like after Legion, and I don't mean like specific spells. I just mean like when did the game become like that? Although this is so healing related, I would love for some DPS examples too.
Is because it does all these other things on top of it, the actual healing of Holy Shock sucks. That's kind of the problem that Glimmer had and stuff. And you can make these same arguments for basically every class in the game. Tanks, DPS, healers, whatever. I'm just most familiar with healers, so I apologize for those that aren't.
Thank God.
But I encourage you to download this add-on and just go and look at the tooltips and see, what happens when you scroll over them. So most of you are probably in the boat of like, okay, well, why does this matter, right? Like, why do I care? Mistweaver's balanced around taking all these talents, right? So like, if I like, it's not like I'm not going to take them. So why does this matter to me? And if you're in that boat, good. I'm glad you're in that boat. By the end of this video, I want to try to like sway you and tell you why it's such a big problem and why it's like,
okay,
in my opinion, ruining the game, right? So in that same example of a Holy Paladin,
Max, why do people keep saying formerly known as Twitter? It's been 2 years at this point. I just still, anytime I'm referring to it, I just call it Twitter. I probably will for the rest of my life, and it's not like a bit. It's not like I think about it. It's just what it is. But I do appreciate when Dratno says X, and every single time he says it, he says X the everything app. That's a great bit.
Your spells have no impact, and I think impact matters. It's actually one of the reasons I fell in love with WoW's combat. WoW has the best combat in MMOs, and it's not close.
Yep, that is true.
I haven't played
especially
every single one of them,
healing, especially
I genuinely
healing.
believe
Like what WoW
WoW's
does with
combat
healing, what WoW does with healing, just absolutely windmill dunks any other. It's so not close. Like probably the closest game that does healing well is Final Fantasy, and they have off GCD cooldowns. and they basically are like spamming a global heal or a global damage thing. But like how intricate your damage rotation and healing rotation is in WoW, it's completely incomparable in both dungeons and raids.
Matched between like encounters and how you play them and classes and stuff. It's so much better than the rest, and that's why it's survived for 20 however many years. But your spells having impact matters a lot. So how does this relate to encounters, right? Again, let's say you go into a Mythic Plus dungeon. When was the last time you were like, I don't really need my interrupt, right? I mean, like, we could probably do this without an interrupt. I want to take a different talent instead. I want like an extra roll charge or something. You'd be crazy, right? You'd be like, dude, are you like asking to wipe? Or like, what if you don't have Ring of Peace as a monk? I'm gonna like try a different build or whatever. I want to like try and cook something.
Yeah.
I'm gonna play something else. Maybe I gain like a damage talent or something. I'm not super familiar with monk talents, but you'd be crazy. You've probably heard Dorky and Growl and Max and them talk about like, dude, like dungeons are way, like they're doing too much. Right?
Oh,
and I agree.
I mean,
if you go into a pug like 10 or 12 or whatever, it is like
that's mostly
battling in the
Dorky.
trenches of World War II.
I don't really
It
do
is so miserable because
but I do be talking
players
about
aren't
it.
clicking their interrupts or their CC, so you just have to like deal with it, and the encounters are not meant to be dealt with. There's a reason why every single dungeon in every single pack has like 3 or 4 mobs that have interrupts. It's because we have more interrupts than we've ever had before. We have more stops than we've ever had before. So they have to make us use them. A fantastic example or a couple of examples from Raid is Razageth from Vault of the Incarnates, right? Huh? The giant winds that are... I mean, if you looked at this from like 2011 and you saw the Razageth encounter, phase 1, you'd be like, what the hell is happening? Right?
Okay, to be fair though, I don't think they're ever going to do a fight like Razageth ever again, and I don't think that was because of overall game power creep. I think that was just because of Evoker. They were like, we want you guys to play Evokers, so we're gonna make a boss where you literally need Evokers for some classes to even do it. But I don't think they were like, we have a lot of movement abilities in the game, let's make a movement fight, right? It was more like, let's make an Evoker fight, and it happened to do that. I don't think they'll ever do it again. Although there is some Razageth type stuff on Gallywix kind
movement skills or immunities or
he's talking about the orbs, the CCing. I would probably say that as well. I doubt they'll ever have a spark type mechanic again as well. But it is a good boss to point out that they did create a boss that did require the massive amount of things they've added in that area.
Whatever to live those winds. Also, sorry if you hear motorcycle. I'm not going to edit this video, but there's one outside right now.
So Chad. I'm not going to edit this video.
But you have so many different ways to counter these winds. These winds that literally will knock your player off the platform, that it's not actually a problem. Another couple of great examples recently is Tyndril Sage Swift or Queen Ansarek. The entire raid gets rooted. On Tyndril, like some of the root sets would get deleted by those dragon raiding mechanics or whatever. If you didn't, if you didn't do Tyndril, imagine Queen Ansarek, every other root set just got like deleted by some poison or something on the floor. You still had to break the roots. Well, why would they design a fight like that, right? You don't have enough damage to break the roots before you have to move from these giant beams that one-shot you or poison that will kill you in like 2 ticks. So, like, what are you supposed to do, right? Every class in the game has a root break, aside from like priests. And I think they have kind of lost.
Yeah, that is interesting actually. Like in Tyndril, they wanted you, they punished you for breaking it, and then in Nerebar Palace, one raid later, they gave you a root mechanic just like Tyndril, but didn't punish you, which kind of implies, like, at least in the week that we killed it, if you wanted to AoE all of those roots in P1, I don't think you would have killed it. It just did too much damage, and like, like you would have. So like the fight was designed for you to actually root break all of it. So this is definitely a good point.
The scope of like what a class can have, and they have expanded those boundaries and expanded those boundaries and expanded those boundaries. And a large like contributor to that is the Dragonflight and the War Within talent trees.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, that is the big. I guess when we were asking the question of like when did this happen? When did this start? This whole argument. It's kind of been happening forever, but the biggest I notice personally that this is so much different was the talent trees. That is certainly the biggest jump in that area. And then hero talent's kind of secondary by focusing on a few specific abilities, but I think hero talents are much less egregious. I also still think the talent trees are good for the game, by the way. I know some people are like anti the new talent trees. I think the new talent trees are better than what we used to have, but I do think it also has contributed to this problem. Like you can kind of see it. Remember when they first came out and like you were probably just looking at your class's tree and you're like, wait, these things used to be spread out and now I can have like all of these things? That seems broken. Well, every single spec in the game was saying that. So when every single spec in the game is saying that, the game is also like getting power crept or more complex, right?
To fill out 31 and 30 points that you can also swap between. So like I have a bunch that are not
Dude, young
clipped as well,
Squilliam.
right?
What a
How are you
fucking
supposed to
2 years right there.
Fill out that many talent points.
I just shouted us up.
Well, you have to give them literally everything and then some. Renewing Mist didn't always have this many things affecting it, but it kind of has to now because you need 30 different things to fill out your talent tree. So, in my opinion, and while I was on the record saying that the talent trees are sick, they were new, there's a
Quick, Max, please also give me Parasite. Win credit, boy, I love you.
lot to learn.
But really,
I think these talent trees are a mistake.
like real shit.
I think they're way too big. The idea behind swapping talents on a fight by fight basis or a dungeon by dungeon basis.
I think about you.
That in theory is really cool. I think they have completely missed and like widened the scope of these talents to effectively.
Okay,
just,
so talent
like,
trees
these
are too
aren't
big.
Just talents. These are classes. You are like selecting your spec in this talent, and it's I think it's causing a lot of problems when it comes to encounter and class design and stuff.
We're getting a little bit
I
looser
think
here.
These talent trees need pruned, like massively, so that. Your
What would that
spells
look
can
like,
impact
though? I think it'd be hard to go back from this. Like, what pruning these talent trees most likely ends up as is they bake in a lot of the basic shit, and then they make just less total choice nodes. But then, like, you're still effectively getting the same thing. Like, a real pruning would be like you're losing a lot of interactions and talents, and they're making the classes more basic. I find it really hard to believe that they would go down that route, especially because some of the things you'd remove from this talent tree are things like Renewing Mist and some of the basic stuff you get here at the top, Enveloping and Renewing Mist and Life Cocoon and all these like basic ones. But like that's a lot of people at max level forgetting why these are like this in the first place, and it's because of the leveling experience. So like it's very intentional during leveling that like you get level 2 and you get this and you get level 4 and you get this, right? And that's why those things are near the top. It's to merge the leveling experience and the endgame experience. I forgot this even myself because I just haven't leveled in so long, right? So then you'd have to kind of relook at that. But I mean, there's probably ways to accomplish both, but just know that it's a little bit more of a complicated idea than just like remove all the stuff that's basic and obvious, but also that doesn't change what's happening here.
And not every spec in the game has an interrupt and a stun and a AoE, like whatever, snare, 6 different defensives. Like we don't need that. The game didn't used to have that, and it worked great. Your spells had impact. Encounters weren't like massively overtuned where you have like 3 seconds to break your route before you have to move. The game was slower, and that's okay. It was fun. The game was good. So that is kind of the point that I'm trying to drive home whenever we're talking about power creep. Is it's kind of like
I mean, I think there's parts of the game that like there are definitely classes now, DPS classes that play better than any old version of them. So I don't know if necessarily older and slower is better. Although if it's a Blizzard business decision, I think there is quite a large chasm between the retail and classic experience. And I firmly believe that them bringing back classic was like just a way for them to advertise retail, basically. It being its own thing and being popular is good. That's what they want. But like it is in their best interest to get as many of the people that like classic back into retail for the first time since they've played it. Because they're going to continue making that. And classic has like kind of... They're cooking a little bit, but like kind of finite uses. The community's kind of helped a lot with that. But there's such a massive gap between classic gameplay and retail gameplay. And I wonder if there wouldn't be, again, pure business case. I'm not saying they're making the game better or worse, but like making retail, dumbing retail down, easier to understand, easier to play all the classes, maybe even a little homogenizing, would probably have more people play retail. But I don't know if it would make retail a better game for the people that are like already playing it, right? Would be interesting.
Infiltrated its way into every aspect of the game. I don't even want to pretend to think about PvP in 2025 The last time I did PvP where I got like...
All right, we're talking about PvP now. You can probably skip the rest of this, I think. I'm sure he's going to, like, cook a little bit. But yeah, I mean, I think we get it. Fuck Blizzard, you know? And Walmart.